Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings upon each and every one who hears or sees this video. This is video 3 in my refutation of David Wood and his suggestion in his video that Jesus, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon Jesus, Isa, alayhi salam, is the final judge of mankind. In Islam, we totally believe that Isa, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon him, is going to return before the day of judgment to judge some people. We'll talk about that in one of the next videos in this series. But Jesus, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon Jesus, is not the final judge of mankind. So let's pick up where we left off with David Wood in his video, and we'll proceed.
To look at one example of a statement that only God can truly make. And since the challenge we're addressing comes from our Muslim friends, we'll begin with the Quran. There are lots of human judges in the world, Supreme Court judges.
What did he say?
In the world, we'll begin with the Quran. There are lots of human judges in the world, begin with the Quran. There are lots of human judges in the world.
Okay, remember that he said that. There are lots of human judges in the world. We'll proceed.
Supreme Court judges, traffic court judges, American Idol judges, and so on. But according to the Quran, the final judge of all human beings.
Let me stop right there just for a second. Because in saying there are lots of human judges in the world, David Wood, ask yourself, was Jesus, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon Jesus, was he a human? Did he travel the birth canal? Did he breastfeed? Did he eat food and sleep just like every other human being? Absolutely. Every other prophet, peace and blessings be upon all of the prophets. I'm not trying to belittle any of the prophets. We look at all of them equally in Islam, despite popular belief. And so I'm just trying to point out the fact that Jesus, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon him, was one of those human judges that you referred to. We'll get to that in a second.
Beings. The one who decides who goes to heaven and who goes to hell is Allah. As we read in chapter 22 of the Quran, verses 56 to 57, the kingdom on that day shall be Allah's. He will judge between them. So those who believe and do good will be in gardens of bliss. And as for those who disbelieve in and reject our communications, these it is who shall have a disgraceful chastisement.
I would like to thank David Wood for reading these verses of the Quran, because in his sarcasm, his intent wasn't to share the truth, but in reading this is all by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that continually we hear Islam, Muslim this, Muslim that in the media. We have people such as this Islamophobe and Hate-Monger, David Wood, talking about Islam continually. And what's happening is that there's some people that are just out of curiosity, or maybe they're followers of David Wood, and they have questions in their mind about Islam. And so it could be that there's a lot of people that they don't read for themselves. They don't read the Quran. They have no interest in doing so. But in watching a video like this and hearing the verses of the Quran, it makes sense to them. So praise be to Allah, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen, for the beauty of Islam and the fact that Islam is growing despite people's attempts to destroy it or try to mock and ridicule Islam and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our God, our Creator Himself, in many instances. Let's keep listening.
The Bible agrees that while human beings can be judges in a limited sense,
and Jesus, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon him, was a human being as well. Let's keep listening.
God is judge of the entire world. The prophet David says in Psalm 9, verses 7 to 8, "The Lord abides forever. He has established his throne for judgment, and he will judge the world in righteousness."
Notice that the prophet David, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon him, did not say the name Jesus. He was referencing the God of the Torah, the one and only God, the God of Adam, peace and blessings be upon Adam, and the God of every human being since, including Jesus, alayhi salam. And so the prophet David was not mentioning the name Jesus, alayhi salam, by no means. Let's keep listening.
In the book of the prophet Joel, chapter 3, verses 1 to 3, God says that he will one day gather all nations before him for the final judgment.
Okay, in the book of Joel, peace and blessings be upon the prophet Joel, alayhi salam, it does not say the name Jesus once again. And so people are reading things into the verses that they want to be so. And that happens continually in Christianity. And so they take this verse to try to make it and mold it to mean this or make it mean that or whatever fits their fancy at the time. Let's keep listening.
So God, according to both the Bible and the Quran, is the final judge of all people. This means, of course, that anyone who claims to be the final judge of all people is claiming to be God. Imagine.
Note that Jesus, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon Jesus, never made a statement in the Bible that says, I am the final judge of mankind. It does not say that. So, once again, David Wood is trying to read something into the verses that just simply isn't there. Let's keep listening.
And the surprise, then, that Jesus' listeners must have felt when he told them that he's the one who will judge the world. In Matthew 25, verses 31 to 32, Jesus, who refers to himself as the Son of Man, proclaims, "But when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them from one another as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats." So Jesus is going to sit on the judgment throne and judge the world. He goes on to say,
okay, we're going to stop right there with this David Wood video, and I want to make note of some things, but I want to point out that Jesus, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon him, references himself as the Son of Man. And so a Christian apologist by the name of Don Stewart, in an article that he wrote, he states that the Gospels record some 78 times Jesus used that title for himself, referring to the Son of Man. And so actually it's 80 times, but what does the phrase Son of Man imply? It implies one born of a human being, one born of a human. And of course in Islam we totally believe that Jesus, alayhi salam, the son of Maryam, may Allah be pleased with her, was born of a virgin, and we totally believe that. And so there's no dispute about that. But what I do want to point out is the number of times that Jesus, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon him, refers to himself as the Son of Man. And what is he trying to imply? That I am a man. I am the son of a human being. Let's keep on. I want to point out in Exodus 18:13, it says, "It came about the next day that Moses sat to judge the people." Remember that David Wood said, what did he say? Here's the quote: "There are lots of human judges in the world," right? Remember that. Exodus 18:13 says, "It came about the next day that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood about Moses from the morning until the evening. Now when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he was doing for the people, he said, 'What is this thing that you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as a judge, and all the people stand about you from morning till evening?' Moses said to his father-in-law, excuse me, Moses said to his father-in-law, 'Because the people come to me to inquire of God. And when they have a dispute, it comes to me, and I judge between a man and his neighbor and make known the statutes of God and his slaves.'" And so consider this. If someone was a proponent for trying to suggest that the prophet Moses, peace and blessings be upon him, was God, they could use verses such as these to do the same thing that they've done with the verses about Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. So because it says, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God." One could take such a statement, a sentence, and suggest that the prophet Moses, alayhi salam, is suggesting that they come to me to inquire of God, and then try to imply that Moses is suggesting that he is God himself. They're coming to me to inquire of God because I am God. And what's it go on to say? When they have a dispute, it comes to me, and I judge between a man and his neighbor and make known the statutes of God and his laws. Well, once again, someone could use those verses and these sentences and say that Moses is suggesting that he's God himself. Well, absolutely, we know that Prophet Moses, peace and blessings be upon him, never made such a claim, nor did Jesus, alayhi salam, make such a claim. In 1 Samuel chapter 7, verse 15 through 16, it says, "Now Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. He used to go annually on circuit to Bethel and Gilgal and Mizpah, and he judged Israel in all these places." The prophet Samuel, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon him, judged Israel all the days of his life. And who was he judging on behalf of? He was judging on behalf of our God, our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the final judge of mankind. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to leave you by saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings upon each and every one who hears or sees this video. I ask you to subscribe, like, and share as I continue to refute David Wood, the hate-monger, the anti-Muslim Islamophobe, and all his hate-filled rhetoric that is constantly spewing out of his mouth. I ask you to subscribe, like, and share this video. I will get into in one of the next videos Jesus being a judge, and I will tell you who he's going to be a judge of before the day of judgment, not on the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our God, our Creator, is the only judge for the day of judgment itself. So once again, assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen.